Hello, and welcome to Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. My name is Mary Bear Shannon. I'm a reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library. And again, this is Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. I'm coming to you live from my kitchen here in Havertown. We've been doing this show since, I think, April, pretty regularly on Mondays. We are now doing this show the second and the fourth Mondays of the month. So if you're looking to put that on the schedule and make sure you catch this show, it is the second and the fourth Monday of the month at 5 p.m. So again, welcome to Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine. My name is Mary Bear Shannon. I am a reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library. And this show is really just a way for us to share recipes, to talk about food, to maybe talk about shortages, anything you're finding that you can't find in the grocery store that's kind of less so now than it was earlier in the pandemic. But I'd love to hear if you're encountering any other shortages and ways to kind of get around things that you don't have. None of us are just popping in the car to go to the grocery store now. It becomes a more of a hefty thing, and we don't want to go back more than once during a week. So if we find that we're out of things, love to hear how you substitute things for the things that you're making in your kitchen. Again, my name is Mary Bear Shannon. I'm a reference librarian at the Haverford Township Free Library. Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine is really my way of sharing all of my recipes from my recipe box. But I would love to hear what you all have been cooking in your kitchens these past few months. I know you have seen what I have been cooking through this show. If you are looking for past episodes of Kickin' Cooking in Quarantine, you can find them all on YouTube. The Haverford Township Free Library has a YouTube channel, and all of our Kickin' Cooking in Quarantines are there. And I'm actually going to share one on this post once we are done, because I am talking about afternoon tea. And one of the things I did early on in the pandemic for this show is I showed you how I made my scones. I call them mine, but they're really Alton Brown's recipe. It is a never fail recipe for scones, and they are quite good. And so I'm going to share that link to that YouTube video, but I'm going to talk about some of the other things that are yummy to make for afternoon tea. We just had our tea and trivia afternoon yesterday. If you've ever been to the one in person at the library, it's a very fun afternoon of 3 courses of tea and trivia. It starts with a course of scones and butter and lemon curd and jam, and goes to a course of sandwiches and then pastries at the end. Of course, we could not do that this year, but we did do it virtually on Zoom. And I actually made my scones, and people who had registered came to pick it up from the library on Saturday, and then we joined one another on Sunday, and it was a really fun time for all. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of the things that we didn't actually have for this afternoon tea, but something that we normally make for the tea and are really common for having afternoon tea. I have to say that one of the first teas I ever went to was at the Dorchester in London. I was a college student there for a semester, for a term, and a couple of us went dressed up and went to the Dorchester for high tea. That was the first time I'd ever had it. And then it got really popular after that time, and I've been to a couple of the teas around town. I know there's a tea that is offered, at least when it's not a pandemic, at the Painted Teacup in Delaware, in Upper Darby. And when we actually have our tea in the library, we get gift certificates for winners of the trivia to the Painted Teacup. And I'm looking forward to being able to do that next year when hopefully we can all be together again. But there's great teas at the Ritz. There's a great tea at the Four Seasons. And it is a fun afternoon of luxury, drinking tea and eating delicious scones. So again, I am going to share the video of me making the Alton Brown scone recipe to this Facebook Live. But I wanted to talk about some of the other things that you can have for tea. I'm going to show you how to some of the sandwiches that we make for the tea, as well as one of the desserts that we have made for our tea and trivia afternoon. So I'm going to show that in just a couple of minutes. But afternoon tea, how did it come to be? Why is it so celebrated? And I had to find out because I didn't actually know the history. So a little bit about it. It really got started in about 1840 in England. It's really started by, at least the lore is started by Anna, the 7th Duchess of Bedford. And she, tradition was that you would eat kind of late in the evening, 8 or 9. And by about 4, she got really hungry and she kind of had, what she called a kind of a sinking spell. And so she would bring her, she would ask for tea. And then she started asking for like bread and butter and jam, which kind of morphed into scones. And then eventually the Earl of Sandwich is the one that suggested that you might actually put fillings between the bread. And that's kind of how the sandwich got its start. Really throughout most of the 19th century, the tea was too expensive for middle or lower class folks. It was really only accessible by the very wealthy. In fact, tea used to be the tea supply in a grand house was actually locked away in the parlor because it was so expensive. And we have instances that actually pirates would actually seek out the tea ships because they were the most lucrative to plunder, as opposed to, and in fact, there were instances where they actually let rum ships go by for the tea ship because it was so expensive. Now, as tea actually dropped in price, it became a kind of a national pastime in England, and having tea sometime in the late afternoon around 4 was a commonplace. And really was observed way past World War II. It's kind of less so now, but tea used to be, a time for everybody to kind of take a little break in the afternoon. I know for me, sometimes I get to about 4 o'clock and I'm, I need a snack. For them, they stop, they have tea, and they have, it wasn't always like high tea. It was never all the different things that I described with the scones and the sandwiches, but it's just a time to drink tea and probably have a cookie or a biscuit, as they call it. So anyway, I thought I would show you some of the things that I have made for our tea, and hopefully you'll all be able to experience them next year at our tea and trivia when the pandemic is over, we hope, and we can actually gather together again. So anyway, come over to my kitchen and I'm going to show you some of the things that I make for our tea. So here we go. So the first thing that I am going to show you is some of the sandwiches. And we've had all different kinds of sandwiches. I think some of the classic ones are the cucumber sandwich as well as the egg salad sandwich. So I'm going to show you those two things today, but we've had chicken curry sandwiches, we've had chicken salad sandwiches, and we've done all different kinds, but I'm going to show you these two classic here. So I'm going to bend my camera down, and I'm going to first show you the cucumber sandwich. So what I've been doing is I've actually I sliced my cucumbers maybe about 20 to 30 minutes ago because they're full of liquid, and you don't want to slice your cucumbers and put them directly on the sandwich because then you'll have a soggy sandwich. So I actually let them kind of weep a little bit and drain. So I had paper towels on the bottom and I had paper towels on the top. I actually put a little bit of salt on there to kind of draw some of more of the liquid out. And they have been sitting here for about 20 minutes. And I think they are ready to be built into the sandwich. So there are some ways that you can use kind of the base. You can make kind of your own cream cheese spread with garlic powder and onion powder and some fresh herbs. I don't really have any fresh herbs at the moment because it's in the middle of winter. So one of the things I do that is kind of a time-saving tip is I use a Boursin cheese. So I am actually going to use that today. This is kind of my shortcut. I know that Ina Garten always says, you know, some of your stuff can definitely be not made by yourself, especially if you're entertaining, because if you make everything, then you finally get to your event and you're exhausted. So this is going to be my time-saving event, time-saving tip, and I'm going to use this boursin cheese. It's really just, it's garlic and fine herbs and mixed into kind of a cheese, you know, like a cream cheese, and it comes in this little package. So I'm just going to put this to the side. And in terms of bread, it's one of those things that I know a lot of us don't eat white bread, but I think this is the time you can actually use white bread for some of this. So I just got these at the store. It's just a regular, you know, kind of Wonder type bread. And eventually I'm going to cut the crusts off, because this is a fine tea, and so we don't want crusts for our tea. So I'm just going to, you know, take some of this boursin cheese and I'm going to spread it on. I'll probably do it on both sides, and we're going to just evenly spread this over the white bread. Now I do have I have some wheat bread for my egg salad, so it's kind of nice to have the two different colors of bread. I have seen at teas, you know, like a fruit and nut bread with more of a kind of a sweet sandwich. So you could really just be very creative in the types of sandwiches that you can serve. So I am just going to do these on both sides. I mean, you could probably just do this on one side if you're really trying to conserve your spread. I'm just going to, for our sake, I'm going to actually put it on both sides. And I am trying to put the spread all the way to kind of to the edge, so that every bite has got some yummy boursin cheese. So anyway, so now I'm going to take my cucumbers. And again, these are fairly thinly sliced. They have been sitting here draining. And I'm going to layer these. I have to say, I still remember when we first made these, and we did not let these drain, and it was a bit of a mess. So we kind of learned our lesson at the library in terms of making these sandwiches, that you definitely have to drain the cucumbers. So they're all in a kind of one single layer, and then just like a sandwich. But here's the thing. We're going to, actually, I'm going to take my bread knife, and I'm going to cut the crusts off. Now, again, for the different sandwiches that you make, you may want to cut them in different shapes. So for this cucumber sandwich, I think I am going to actually make these into little squares. And then I might actually make the egg salad into triangles, so they're kind of pretty on the plate. And then I'm gonna start to build a sandwich plate, and I'm just gonna kind of, depending on how many I have, I might put them kind of end to end like this, and then I might put the egg salad on the other side. So that's the cucumber. I will be making more of those later. And now we're actually going to show you how to make the egg salad. Now, egg salad, pretty simple, but I will show you how I make mine. My husband was actually making eggs, and I said, can I have a couple for Kickin Cooking? And I was very glad to get a couple. He likes to put them actually in kind of pickle them and keep them in the fridge, and then he takes them actually for lunch, and he loves them. He actually puts a little beet juice in there, and they're very pretty. So anyway, I have I guess I have 6. What do I have? 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 here. I'm just going to chop these up. Now, again, egg salad is one of those things where I don't really fuss about how large it is. For a sandwich, I'm going to probably more thinly chop this, or more finely chop my egg salad just because it's a sandwich. It's a kind of a dainty sandwich, and we don't want big chunks of egg in the, and I'm actually going to put the yolks in here, and those eventually will just kind of smash up, but we're basically going to chop up the whites really fine. And let me just do all of these at once and put the yolks in here, and then we'll chop all of our whites. So anyway, this is one of my favorites, is the egg salad. I have heard from folks that they really like it when we do the curried chicken salad. And I have to say, we have made them in the past. We've also catered them from A Taste of Britain, especially if we got really pressed for time. It's a lot easier to have somebody else make them, and they have some amazing ones. One of the other ones that we've had at the tea and trivia has been pimento cheese, which is one of my favorites. That's a Southern favorite. As many of you know, I was raised by Southerners, and when I used to go visit my grandmother, the first thing I would ask for her from her is pimento cheese, and we would go. She didn't make her own pimento cheese, but we would go and get a tub from the grocery store. So anyway, I'm just going to start to chop up these eggs, and we're going to again try to finely chop these up so that we don't have a ton of big chunks of egg in the sandwich, because this is a dainty tea sandwich as opposed to a nice chunky, egg salad that you might have for lunch. So we're just gonna chop this up first fairly large, and then eventually I'm going to chop them fairly fine. The other thing that is a challenge is making sure that you cook your eggs all the way through, and make sure they're not, sometimes people have all different ways of cooking hard-boiled eggs, and maybe we'll do another show about how to do that, because there are a lot of different theories about how to do that. So here we are. We're just going to chop these up and try and do this fairly fine. There's probably more on this chopping board than there should be, but we're gonna chop these up and get them into our egg salad for our egg salad sandwich. Okay, so I'll get these a little bit more finely chopped. We want these not to be super chunky. And then we're going to get these in here, but we're also going to add in, our mayonnaise and our mustard, and we're going to make sure that these yolks are all smashed. So let me see if I can't get these just a little bit more finely. We have these fairly finely, and then we're going to work on kind of the egg yolks. So here they are. I'm just going to kind of smash these so that when I add the other things like mayonnaise, this all kind of becomes the yumminess that goes around the white. I guess the yumminess, that's not a very technical term, but we're going to kind of smash these up, and then I'm going to add some of the dressing that's going to go. Now, people love lots of different things. If this was more of a summertime, if I was making this in the summer, I might put in chives. But my chives are kind of looking fairly dead outside. Fortunately, they will come back, but they are really not usable at the moment. I might use some parsley. I might use a bunch of different things in my egg salad, but I don't really have that. So what I am going to put in there is maybe about a half a cup of mayonnaise. I'm going to pop that in, and then I always now I know people that love to put ketchup in theirs. I don't particularly like ketchup in my egg salad. But the other thing that is always good is just a little bit of mustard. This is just regular yellow mustard. Now, again, you could fancy this up and use Dijon mustard, a bunch of different things. Now, usually I put in some relish. I didn't have any, so these are just some bread and butter pickles that I finally chopped up. I may not use all of these, but just kind of give it that little sweetness punch. So I put that in there. And then a little bit of salt. And I'll put it a little bit in, and then I will do a little bit to taste later to see if it's adequately seasoned, and then it's just a little bit of pepper. And then we are going to add in our eggs and get this all mixed up, and we'll have lovely egg salad. This is one of my favorite things to have, not only for tea but just for lunch. It's one of those things that I say, oh, I should make it more, and then I don't. So it's one of those things that I'm always glad I've made, but then I go, oh, that was, not that it's a lot of trouble, but it is a lot of different steps. So, but I'm always glad to have it. So here we are, we're getting all of our chopped egg whites in, and then we're going to put this stuff to the side, and we're going to mix this up. So we're just going to mix again, this is just mayonnaise and yellow mustard, the egg yolks that are kind of smashed, a little bit of bread and butter pickles. You could also use, excuse me, like a sweet relish. That would also be just, would be similar to just using a little bit of pickle in there. You might actually like dill pickle. I kind of like the sweetness of the bread and butter or the sweet relish. And see, we're all ready for our sandwiches. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our egg salad sandwich. And again, I'm just going to put this right here on my counter. I am actually going to scoop a little bit on both sides and just kind of spread it around. And then I'm going to, again, cut them in kind of a different shape. I think the important thing is the presentation, and maybe we'll put a little bit more on here. We don't want to make it too full because it'll fall out. You kind of want it to be, because it's dainty and you're going to be in your nice dressed up self. So you don't want to have egg salad spilling all over your lovely tea outfit. So then we're just going to, again, cut the corners, and again, we're going to just do a little bit of a different shape here. And once I get the crusts off, and we're going to do these in triangles. So, and again, I think I may have overstuffed these a little bit, but that's okay. Hopefully you will forgive me for being too greedy on my egg salad. And then I'm going to get my plate out again. As you see, we still have our cucumber sandwiches, and now we're just going to put our egg salad kind of in a nice presentation as well. And then I'm not going to show, doing all of these, but, you can fill this entire plate with, both of the sandwiches, and then it's just a really nice presentation for your tea. So anyway, that's sandwiches. The other thing that we have made regularly for the tea has been little individual cheesecakes, and I'm going to show them to you now. This is one of those things where people think you spent a ton of time. I'm just going to clean this up, and you really haven't. So it's one of those things. It's a real fool. People think, oh, you spent forever making these cheesecakes, because cheesecake, can seem really difficult, but these little mini cheesecakes, super easy. This is a recipe from my stepdad. He has been a real culinary influence in my life, and this is one that he showed me how to make. So, little individual cheesecakes, 2 bricks of cream cheese. I have just kind of softened this up, but it's not completely soft, so I am going to use a mixer. So I apologize for the noise. You may not be able to hear everything I have to say, but the things we're going to put in here are 2 eggs. These are just beaten eggs, and this is going to be our binding agent. So we're going to put those in, and this is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. That's going to go in. And then the last thing, this is really, really simple, is just a teaspoon of vanilla. So put that all together, and then I am just going to combine this for a minute or two, and then we're going to get it into our little cupcakes. So we're just blending the eggs and the sugar and the vanilla and the cream cheese, 2 bricks of cream cheese. So we're just going to get this smooth. And these were softened. Hopefully I can get this fairly smooth before they go into the cupcakes. Just kind of blend this together and get this somewhat smooth before it goes into the oven. Mostly blended now. I think if this had been a little bit softer, we probably would have gotten this mixed up a little bit better, but I think it's fine for now. Okay, so we have our batter now, and here's the trick that I love about this. You don't have to make a graham cracker crust. You basically just put in these little vanilla wafers. You put them in the bottom of the cupcake tin. Now, I have greased these. I do find that it's easier to get this out of when you actually serve this. It gets a little easier if I just sprayed it with a little bit of Pam. And I'm basically putting the 1 vanilla wafer in the bottom here. And then I am going to put in the batter. So, and you want to, just like cupcakes, you want to fill this maybe 2/3 of the way up. So maybe two or three of each, a spoon, 2 or 3 spoonfuls to get it to about 2/3. You don't want them to overflow, but they're not going to rise like a cupcake as much as, something that's more like a cake. Cheesecake won't rise, so you don't have to worry as much about it spilling over. And then, so this is going to cook, maybe about 15 minutes. They're going to set up, that's the thing about regular cheesecake is it takes forever to cook, and then there's always the worry that the top is going to split, which always distresses my mother. She's like, oh, my cheesecake split on the top. And I'm like, Mom, why do we care? We're going to put, something yummy on the top. And that's the thing we're going to put on the top, which we're going to use the cherry filling, which is kind of the classic. You can use any filling you'd like. You could use blueberry, you could use apple. But you put that on afterwards, after it's cooled, and then you stick them in the fridge, and then they are ready to serve for your tea whenever you are ready to have it. So it's one of those things you can do in advance. You don't have to do the day of. That's the thing about like the cucumber sandwiches, is you kind of have to do them right before the tea, and that's kind of a pain because you're trying to get everything else together. And I think that's why we kind of sometimes we have it catered for the tea at the library, because there's just so many other things to think of. We do serve tea, and I have some great helpers that help me pretty much every year. Kathleen Rowe is one of those people. Thank you, Kathleen. She faithfully comes and helps pour tea for me. Louise Bell has also been someone who has poured tea for me. So I'm always very grateful. So anyway, so we have filled these up. I think it's going to make about 24. I've got a couple more to do. This is going to go into the oven, and it's going to cook for about 15 minutes at about 325. You're going to take them out and let them cool. I use, like I said, cherry pie filling. Just put that on the top after they have cooled, and then you put them in the fridge and pull them out when you're ready. So anyway, that is those are all the things that I do for my my tea, our afternoon tea at the library. We do have, again, we had it this year, but we had it on Zoom. My hope is that we'll be able to do it in person next year. And I hope that this has inspired you to come to our tea and trivia. It's usually in January. It's usually at the end of January. And we always love to have everybody there. It's really a nicely attended event, and it's a fun time to be together. So anyway, that is Kickin' Cookin' for today. Thank you for joining me for my recipes for afternoon tea. And I hope you all have a great week.